Okay, perfect. So at least we are aligned in our recording.
Perfect.
हाँ, रुक जा. Uh, okay. So I'll tell you when we're starting. वहाँ से we'll this thing. Wait, let me put my this thing. हाँ. Okay. So I'll say hello and welcome to the first live podcast of Paper Planes College Festival. I have here with me blah 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 and then we'll start. थोड़ा पीछे जा bro, तेरा head cut हो रहा है.
अरे
थोड़ा लैपटॉप आगे आगे डाल और आगे डाल. डालना आगे. क्या कर रहा है तू?
अरे इसके ऊपर है, रुक। पीछे सब बुक्स है मेरे, और
अच्छा
भी बुक्स है।
वो ठीक है, जाने दे, दिस इज फाइन.
नहीं तो
दिस
रुक,
फाइन
मैं
इज फाइन.
खुद की आगे कर देता हूँ ना, अभी आ जाएगा।
हाँ, परफेक्ट परफेक्ट परफेक्ट. ठीक है, ओके. ऑल सेट. मेरे आगे पीछे कुछ बकवास है क्या? दिख रहा है तेरे को?
नहीं,
नहीं, ओके.
अभी now after you told me I can see that pink thing, so that's visible, but
दैट्स
otherwise
ओके.
everything is cool and that looks nice, bro. Velvet touch and all
या
looks good.
बट इट्स ओके मैन.
And
चल.
you're wearing pink also today. You're flowing with the vibe.
वही है, मैंने इसलिए पिंक पहना है. गोइंग विद द वाइब. चल, वी स्टार्ट इन 3 2 1. Hello and welcome to the first live podcast. I'm sorry it's not going to come up live, but this is the first podcast we are recording for Paper Planes College Festival. I'm Karan Kapadia, and with me, I have today a student athlete, a law student, and the founder of markyourpresence.org, Chaitanya Prabhu. Hi, Chaitanya.
Hi Karan, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
Always a pleasure to talk to you as well, my friend. How have you been?
All good. I mean, the lockdown hasn't been the best time for all of us, but we've been productive to trying to do something. As you can see, the things behind have kept me a little busy in this lockdown.
Yes, I'm pretty sure. What has okay? First, can you explain to the listeners what Mark Your Presence is?
So, for everybody that is listening, essentially, Mark Your Presence is a non-profit, non-political organization which works with the support of the election bodies of Maharashtra and Delhi to essentially register and educate young voters. Our whole focus is to have a democracy with educated voters and to convert every institution into a voter-friendly campus. So that's, in a nutshell, that's what we do.
So in Bombay, what all colleges have you all currently gone to and registered from?
So technically, we've gone to almost all the colleges that you can think of. There are some specific colleges that we couldn't go to, like the IIT Bombay, because they had a lot of regulations and stuff like that. But other than that, we've gone to almost all the colleges that are there that are affiliated to Mumbai University or
Hmm.
that are independent, like NMIMS. If not that, if not the route through the colleges, we've gone through the NSS and the Rotary. So we have not left any particular college in Mumbai, if I were to say that.
So what's the process of finding a college? Let's say you pick a college, and how do you go about it? Do you contact the management? How does it go about it?
So how it all started was, earlier I went to every, I mean, I wouldn't say school, but every college where I sat outside the principal's office and I asked for a seminar or sort of a time where I can speak to the students. That's how we earlier started. And our first seminar was at the Xavier's Institute, where the principal was very warm in giving us that time and we could speak to a lot of students. After that, what happened essentially was, when we started registering more voters, the NSS and the Road Track Club started inviting us. And slowly, it gradually, when we started, we were just five, 500 odd registered voters, and we went on to 5,000. And then colleges started calling us. So from going to the principal's office to being called
Yeah.
to the principal's office for the seminar. So that was our glide when it comes to how we did it. But essentially, I think everybody has to start from the bottom. So that's what we did. And gradually we started getting invites to go, because, I mean, registering voters was, and I was lucky that I started this 6 months before the election. So I started this in 2018, a little bit before the election. So this was the election wave. So colleges did require young people getting registered. Institutions did require it. So the demand obviously increased with the time towards closer to the election, and that hence helped us get into every school and college.
And coming from a law student, I think that is like your law colleges, especially from your in your college, it must have been a big buzz that yes, we have somebody like you who is, registering people, and this is something which changes a big dynamic as a student, especially that you are already a student. It changes the dynamic in terms of how we see not law students especially, and we see students becoming the change instead of being a part of some organization that already has been established over the years. Now students themselves are organizing drives and organizing their own communities to ensure that their voices are heard. Like, that's the idea, right, behind all of this.
Absolutely. And I think Mumbai University has been extremely supportive and helpful to me throughout, whether it is my law college or whether it is the NSS program or whether it's the government or whether it's any institution. They've been really, really supportive.
Hmm.
So I have them to thank, everyone, especially the institutions and the college, of course, for giving me this sort of leeway of not coming to college, to give me this leeway to go to other schools and conduct seminars and stuff. So I think everybody's been really supportive, and I think it's the collective group of institutes and people. That's why I have a lot of respect for Mumbai University. Every time I talk about them or for them, there's never against them, because if I wouldn't have received this sort of warm invitations from them or support from them, probably Mark Your Presence wouldn't have scaled to what we are today. It is
Absolutely.
because of the institution and the teachers.
Absolutely.
Whether private, I mean, NMIMS always has been also a great pillar of support. In fact, I have spoken to the graduate students there as well, and they've been kind enough to call me for time and again. So, I mean, the whole street of which has so many institutes, I've gone to each one of them. So, it is a great privilege to help every student and be part of small institutional discussions and seminars.
Absolutely, absolutely, I agree. And one second, I'm so sorry. Yeah. So coming from, let's say, like another, sorry, man. Another thing I wanted to ask you about is being a student athlete in throughout from school. Let's say, for how many years have you been an athlete now?
From the 8th standard.
Wow. Okay. And what sport do you play?
So athletics, I run the 400 meters and the 200 meters. And I've been performing, representing the state of Maharashtra since then. So since 8th standard. And collectively managing sports, academics, and then Mark Your Presence seems like a big task. But trust me, if you are into any form of sports in the initial years of your life, they train you to become what you are. So whether
Yes,
it's
absolutely.
management, whether it is essentially, I think time management is what you learn when you're an athlete, and all you got to do is just replicate that on your organizational model and you're good. So I think I have that to thank as well. I have Cyril sir to thank for that.
Yeah. For anybody who didn't understand that comment, that's a Jamnabai thing. For anybody who did, yes.
I'm sure we have a lot of people from Jamnabai that are part of or listening to this.
I hope so. I mean, represent, but at the same time, we're
Trend.
so
It is a trend that you, after Jamnabai, you either go to NMIMS or you go to Mitibai, or you're on at least that lane.
yeah, yeah. It's been a thing since ages now, and it's been a
I
part
think
of.
since Mitibai came out, since NMIMS came out, since SVKM was established, I think after 10th you went there. After ISC came in Jamnabai, you were there for 2 more years, but you
Yeah,
gradually went there anyways. Couple of
absolutely.
lanes away, right?
But on that note, actually, coming to the topic of that, we see that NMIMS and not NMIMS, but SVKM has a lot of, let's say, like Mitibai has a Gujarati quota and all of that in terms of reservation. What is your opinion on colleges who are affiliated with Mumbai University having reservations in today's day and age, and how do you think it impacts from coming from a student, a law student especially, how do you think it impacts our country?
So I think reservations are needed. I mean, especially from the country that we come from, and the startup society and the divide that we see, it is
Hmm.
definitely needed. But when you talk about reservations for communities, I think I think that is something that depends on which college you're talking about. So there are a lot of institutions like the Manipal Institute, which
Hmm.
essentially was founded by a particular community called the GSB community, and they had a reservation for this community, and it was removed because they said that you are not a minority, so why should this reservation be given to you? The founders had some different thought process. They said we founded this college to help the community as well. So there are a lot of differences that come across, but I think in the overall process it does benefit. Now when you talk about management seat, it's a different ball game together, because see, when we look at education, we as young people look at education as something that will get us a job, will get us some sort of recognition, will get us that society title. But an institution, for it is a business. They are obviously trying to give you some sort of knowledge and validation to society, but at the end they are running a complete business, because they have teachers to pay, they have institutions to
Absolutely.
maintain, tax to give. That's why when people talk about reducing the amount of fees in the pandemic, the colleges, some may even want to do that, but they really can't, because teachers are not going to allow their salaries to be substantially dropped. The the working staff that is going to clean the institution is still going to ask that. The government is going to ask for their tax. The electricity bill is going to come. So until and unless there's a reduction on every level, there is nothing that we can do,
But there
even when it
could be,
comes.
right? Let's say you have an institution that their AC charges now, take for the simplest thing, their air conditioning charges are quite out, right? It doesn't cost them
Absolutely.
that. Their usage in electricity
Absolutely.
would drastically
There
drop.
are going to be these minor changes that are going to, at the end of the day, trickle down to a larger amount. But
Yeah,
for that to change, the laws will have to change, the functioning will have to change, the management will have to take collective decisions. And in these unprecedented times, we never knew whether this is going to stay the same or the model will have to change. So a lot of institutions, don't want to name, all
yeah,
the viewers and all the people that are listening know about these institutions. And but it was very difficult on their end also, because we had conversations with them to understand their problems as well. And once we understand the institutional stories, we do understand how much pain they have to go through to make small trickle down effects, whether it is this small electricity bill or whether it's the AC. It all accounts for, because education is a huge thing in India, and you're not one student, you're 50 in a class, you have 7 classes, you have thousands of students in one building. So you make one edition for one person, you got to do it prima facie for everybody.
absolutely. Yeah.
So
I mean,
that becomes a problem, I think.
let's say like Mumbai University, if they give grants to one college, they have to give it to every college that falls under them. They cannot subsidize just one college, which makes sense. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And they
Yeah.
then obliged to, because somebody else will say, you've given a grant to X college, why don't you give it to Y? And then they will have to.
Yeah. And yeah, man, I get it. And another thing, like it also affects the people who are reliant on these institutions to pay their bills, right? Like that is one factor that we should also consider. Coming from students, there are multiple students who it's the both sides to the coin, right? Like there is, on one end you have students who are not being able to afford laptops, and like even for that matter smartphones. There are millions of students in India who might not be able to afford that. So
Absolutely.
coming from their perspective, a lot of them have faced drastic issues with the whole idea of not being able to afford internet connectivity, high speed internet, laptops, phones, all of that stuff on which they can write their assignments, give their exams, and stuff like that, right? But on the other end, you have colleges who are saying that what can we do? Like we can't stop college because it drains a massive chunk of resources for like the entire country. Point number one. Point number two, unlimited number of jobs lost. You can't even count how many people are making good money off, not in bad ways, but genuinely making money, from coaching classes all the way to tuition teachers, to school college teachers, to people who work in colleges, their cafeterias. All these people depend on this kind of stuff, so it does like make a big difference to where do we draw the line. And this is not something that we already have faced in our lives, that yeah, we can go back to the drawing board and see what we can learn from old times. So that's one
Absolutely.
possibility also.
Absolutely. I mean, I think internet connection is, Karan, to be honest, such a privilege for some of us. I mean, we don't realize it because when I was solving the medical issues of some medical students, people didn't eat food so that they
Sorry,
could
I'm
pay
sorry to
their.
cut you off. None of us know about what your the medical issues. I don't
Okay, so
understand.
the medical issue was something which is very important. As you know, in Mumbai there is one private medical institute in the city of Mumbai, and there are others are all government institutes. Now, if you want to get into these government colleges to study, there is a particular score that you have to get. Now, these are the smartest people that of in India that get in Mumbai.
Hmm.
I mean, there's of course AIMS and other colleges which are also at par, but KEM and Nair happen to be the best institutes to get in. What was happening, which was very, very strange. Every year, KEM and Nair give accommodation to students. Now, what is the population? It's 250 people. This year, they decided not to give accommodation to 250 people and said, you decide for yourself. Now, what happened was that because this happened, a lot of people didn't know what to do because, see, all the people that come to study in Mumbai that get these scores are from different parts of Maharashtra, are different farmers' kids, people who own lands. They may not have that sort of money to pay Mumbai rents, 35 to 40,000 rupees
Absolutely,
in the
absolutely.
island city. KEM is in town, Nair is in town. So it's extremely, forget town, anywhere in the MMR region or anywhere in the Mumbai region, it is expensive to stay. So what happened was last year also, some of the occupational therapy courses did not get accommodation. And because this happened, a lot of people had to pay huge rents in these so-called Sobo areas of Mumbai. And they had to sacrifice on their food to pay the rent. They couldn't buy their own books, Karan. Can you imagine the status of medical scholars that are getting into institutes like KEM? And to be honest, the people around, the people in power and all, a lot of them didn't even know this. So government knowing, opposition knowing, nobody knew this because it was at a very personal and a local level that they were like, fees of, I mean, rent is 30,000 rupees or 25,000 rupees. How do we buy books? That's why I was like, okay, this is a problem that I can probably solve. So I made a list of all the books that they need. Since then, I've started this book donation drive wherein I essentially collect whichever book you have. Luckily, I have a garage where I have enough space and I've made sort of arrangements for every book. Whichever book anybody has, I get it. I keep it in the garage, categorically put it. And whenever there's a need of those books, I give it to people. So idea is that if anybody has a particular book that a person needs and can share, we give it for free. Absolutely. So there's no dependency on other people, and we as students can help each other. So
Hmm.
idea is to collect educational books, and if you have novels and if you have non-fiction books, feel free to give us because we could give it to the people that we know need it, especially the people in the slums.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So imagine this is the situation of students in Mumbai where you don't have money to buy books, and institutions say download the books on a PDF and read it on your iPad or read it on your tablet. But how do they read it on a tablet when they can't afford a tablet? That's the problem that they're facing. And we can always blame the government, the opposition, the institution. But I think till we do our little bit, because we're a developing country and we need to collectively help this country grow and the
Hmm.
spirit of this country in our own level. We don't need to do what the government can do, but small things like collecting CA books. I was grateful that a lot of people from Jamnabai helped me. A lot of people, a lot of our friends who passed the examinations were really happy to give me their CA books, which I in turn gave it to the people that I knew in the slums. So this interchanging and students helping each other is something that we need. And I said, this is not what my organization fundamentally does. We work towards democracy and strengthening that of educational and that of essentially educating voters. But I saw this as a potential field and I say, I know this problem. I've spoken to this student. I heard her voice and there's no way I'll not go and help her. So again, it started as a small way to help a couple of them, and now it's scaled. And you won't believe they were the first people to write to me and say, Chaitanya, we will donate books of what we got and we bought in last semester. So that is the culture, and there are people all around like that, and
And
all we
that's
need
what
to do
we,
is.
as a student body, I think a part of a country which is extremely vocal, a student organization that a part of a student body that we are, the Indian education system, we have such a large voice that impacts such a great demographic. These small concepts like organizing the book donation drive, it impacts and the plus the world that we're connected in right now, it impacts so many of us in a positive way that it's something that we should do. And that leads me to my next question, considering that you're a student that is heavily involved in politics as well, and the fact that you have been someone who has had an organization that registers voters, what do you think is the next state for, let's say, Maharashtra at least opening up schools and colleges?
I think they should not be opening it anytime soon. To be honest, according to what I'm seeing, I think schools and colleges should stay how they are till X amount of people are vaccinated. Because see, when we think about opening schools and colleges, it's a large amount of people collecting in one area who come from different parts of Mumbai. And let us
Not
all
only
understand that
Mumbai, all over India.
all over
NMIMS
India.
itself, my college itself has a good 30 to 40% of its population from different parts of the country.
Yeah, moreover, in fact, the people that come from different parts, let's consider, I've heard a lot of people from Delhi, Amritsar are part of NMIMS. They could probably, they may have their apartments here. They are in fact safer traveling from their own apartments, coming to the college and going back. But the tricky part is the people that stay with their grandparents, stay with their parents who are
Yeah.
above 60. So you're going to come to the college, we're going to meet everybody that is coming from other parts of Mumbai or wherever
Mm.
it is, who are coming using local transport, and then meeting your parents. So it's not going to serve the purpose. You're just going to infect more people, and you are not going to be able to. I mean, people are not following the norms in Mumbai, anyways. Imagine BMC earned 30 odd crores from taxing people for not wearing masks. I mean,
Yeah.
what can be a loop? I mean, this is extremely lucrative business, right? Don't wear a mask, you get taxed X amount, and people are willingly paying, and people are not wearing the mask. So
200 rupees, right? So people are like, okay, whatever.
imagine that 200 has made 30 crores. So it's a good source of income that is coming up because of the negligence of that of everybody. It's not only the middle aged, young, old, but everybody in Mumbai. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
would suggest that it is better for the institutions not to open. Examinations could be conducted in the MCQ and a oral interview sort of way, where if they really want to check and understand how a student has
Mhm.
understood things, why don't you talk to them just like how we are and analyze them, ask them open-ended questions. Because I mean, it's better to conduct examinations online to assess students' capability rather than them coming to college and having this healthcare issue.
Absolutely, absolutely. And considering that also people who have not, now let's say somebody coming in, if they decide to open the colleges, let's say like in the next month, there is no prior announcement. It's just a 15-20 day gap that we have. Now I live very close to my college, I don't have any problems, I'm in that population which will not face any issue, to the extent that I already have antibodies, and to a large extent I'm quite safe around my entire community. So I'm one of the few people who is more or less safe, right? But consider people who have a 20-day notice, who live in another part of the country. They would come down, find a house. So in 20 days, they have to find a house, pack their stuff up, move their entire life that they already have created over the past year, almost a year in through the pandemic, figure that stuff out, bring that life to Bombay, and then like get to college. And how it's not possible, like the logistics don't, like it cannot make sense, because the, let's say the even if you call teachers to teach, quite a few of our teaching population is above the age of 40, a large extent, especially professors in higher education, right? So that is a great problem, because you're putting one, now let's say one professor catches it, they pass it on to 50 students, and it's a ripple effect, it's a chain reaction that is absolutely horrible. And that way you're right, it doesn't make sense. Like now our academic year ends in, let's say, April, right? There is a possibility that we can administer vaccinations to students and the education system entirely later on in the month of June, July, and anyway, our colleges open in July, August. So that might still be a possible idea, but for the coming semester, the semester between August and December, June and December. That's the one that we can look forward to. But apart from that, it doesn't really make sense.
Absolutely. I think what you've said is absolutely correct. And I think the government should, in fact, not have colleges open, because we've seen what happened when we opened nightclubs and when we opened the public transport. At least, I mean, there is no concept of social distancing. And I think we should have learned from that of England. Don't like to always say that, but we should have learned from
Yeah.
them, and we should have learned from that of the other countries, even Italy
Yes.
for that matter, that it does cause a problem if these public transportation is used, because people don't follow norms.
And it's not only public transportation. You also consider, like, okay, fine, to an extent, public transportation is in Bombay. The local trains are what runs the country, like runs the city in most definitely, because you have people traveling from Dhanu, Daisar. Daisar is the last stop in Mumbai, all the way to Kolaba, all the way to Churchgate, right? And people take that train every day. So it definitely ensures that you have a means of transport to feed your family, which is a big deal, right? And you have buses and all of that, and autos, obviously a richer option, but still there. All things considered,
Risky. Still very, very risky. Uber is also as risky. You
yeah,
don't
yeah,
know.
absolutely.
So it is really, really complicated, and some things that are complicated should be left. I think the only thing that is dragging people to institutions, or institutions why they really want us to come, is A, because they are paying X amount of salaries to their teachers, to their staff, so they're anyway shelling out money. B, also examinations. They have this force to conduct it. But I think we should all believe what Bill Gates has to say, and he said nothing is going to be perfect till next year's Feb or March.
Absolutely.
So
And it's a permanent damage that has been caused to the entire economy, most definitely.
to the world. So I think we should just listen to the experts and not do what the other countries did and again go in lockdown. Because trust me, when we go in lockdowns, the ones who are privileged are at least relaxed because there's food on the table. The ones that are not really have issues.
Yeah, yeah,
And
right.
and then there's nothing that we as privileged people can go and help. How many people can we help to give food in a day if they can't afford to? So it becomes a problem for everybody. And I think first things they need to do is, I don't know how many of these viewers would probably like what I'm saying, but nightclubs is
Not a
a
good idea.
complete no, because there's no concept of social distancing on tables that you buy and you're on, right?
Hmm.
So how do you even work that off?
Yeah, absolutely. The
We don't
restaurant is
know.
a restaurant is maybe a different thing. It provides for a lot of jobs, but yeah, you're right. Maybe nightclubs that probably
Nightclubs are
are,
only economically very good to the owners, but otherwise,
yeah,
I think they help in spreading COVID, right? One place, no masks, sticking
absolutely.
together, not a good atmosphere.
But switching back to your student athlete life a little bit, what do you think is the current state of India in terms of providing, let's say, do you know about student scholarships, right? I'm sure you might be knowing about, but why don't we see more investment into student scholarships and an entire student athlete commission or body, and a higher amount of investment in that in our country?
So it depends on the sport, to be honest, Karan. Like, the sport that I'm into is not a very commercial sport.
Hmm.
So there'll be less scholarships for athletics.
Hmm.
The money comes in when large amount of people are seeing and there's viewership. In athletics, you will have viewership only in schools where you have relays and you have stuff which is exciting. But will you pay 200 rupees to see a national event? You might, because you're my friend. People from Jamnabai will probably come to see it because I'm there. But for the sport, it will take time.
Hmm.
That's why in these sort of sports it's very difficult to ask. But the sports which have viewership all have good enough scholarships. But the problem is the people are so much when it comes to cricket, so the scholarships become small. Even with football, there are scholarships, but then there are so many people trying, right, for those sports, so that becomes a problem. With respect to educational scholarships, I mean, we're lucky that there are few foundations in Mumbai and in India, whether it's the Azim Premji Foundation or whether it's the Tata Foundation or it's a Commonwealth or the Nehru. We have several that help you, but these help you to go abroad because we fancy studying abroad and not in our. That's why I'm so grateful for institutions like Symbiosis, NMIMS, which people may say whatever, but they have played a pivotal role in making sure that young people in India stay in India and study for longer,
Absolutely. The brain
which
drain
is the
reduces.
most, which is the most important. And I realized something, Karan. It's very easy to go abroad and study. It's very difficult to study in your own country because A, you have to fight for the examination to get in. B, then you're in this reservation clause. C, then you have to compete with smart people. To get a PhD in India is very, very difficult. I
It's
was
heavy.
going around the procedure. Whereas you can go abroad, you can UK, you don't even have to worry about anything. All you have to do is get some marks and have money in your pocket, and there you go in a university. US at least comparatively a little difficult because you got to
Hmm.
meet with the requirements of the test. So I think I mean we're not there where we should be technically because we have a lot of talented people, but I think it'll take a couple of more years, maybe 10 to 15 years to get where we think we should be, because we've not even completed 100 years of independence. So you
Yeah.
look at India, drained of all its wealth, was a powerful country, and now it's just coming back. But what irritates me is a lot of people are just moving abroad and then they stay abroad. So I look at the drain still happening because I look at young people who are talented as the wealth of this country, who are voluntarily going there and creating wealth for that country. I think young talented people like all of us should have some sort of thing to contribute to that of our economy, because trust me, I mean, you look at the CEOs, you look at the talented people all around the world, half of them are Indians. It's not even funny. The best CEOs of the world are Indian. So imagine all these people stayed here and created something. Back then, we couldn't expect them because there were no opportunities.
Hmm.
Now they are. Bangalore is the IT hub. Mumbai is the financial capital. You get jobs here. You can create your own mess. So I think it'll take time for people to understand, but I'm happy that at least the people that I know from Jamnabai at least are going abroad, studying, getting their knowledge, coming back and either working on their own family business or starting something of their own or working with other organizations. So at least they're coming back and using their skills or probably mindset to that
Absolutely.
of Group India. And I think similarly, everybody from NMIMS should do that because I think we have such talented people. In fact, in Markio Presence, we have a couple of people from NMIMS, and I look at them and I say, these are really bunch of smart people. I mean, what they could do here and help our economy in whatever way, would be way better than what they would do there because we're not technically first citizens there. But here we are. So, yeah.
That is there. And coming to the whole idea of like scholarships for students, I think in the whole concept of, let's say, how I think I've spoken to you about this before, the NCAA in National College Athletic Association, I think in the United States, we do not,
Yes.
we, although we might have something like that here, like in Mumbai School Sports Association and all of that, but it doesn't have the same like what we did with ISL, our football league, with our kabaddi league, an indigenous sport that we have created. Kabaddi is quite consumed by the Indian population, right? Even ISL for that matter. If we bring that down to a college level, to a schools, yes, there is quite a big of a buzz, especially amongst the students, but to a college level there is great quality, because post the age of 18, 19, 20, you see you're quite developed physically as well, so you're at your prime. And imagine the quality of games that we can create in every possible sport, and that brings in not only money to colleges, it creates like sponsorship deals, it allows for a lot to happen for students, right? And to be recognized, kabaddi could be recognized as an international level sport. It's that physically demanding, the upper body, lower body strength, all that you need. It's, I mean, I don't play the sport at all, but it's something so physically demanding, and we can see the level of athleticism in those athletes, and that if we trickle down to a college level and blow it up to a certain level that is consumed by the population, it adds to a great deal of value.
Absolutely, I completely agree with you. I clearly remember us having this conversation. In fact, in an extensive report that I have submitted to that of the Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sport and our Sports Minister of India, where I've extensively spoken about how Khelo India, which is our sport
Hmm.
essential
Hmm.
event, which exactly what you're saying, having different sports from around India, essentially the best of athletes coming together, performing so that we could then put them into some sort of international platform. So Khelo India is doing that. But there are a lot of measures that need to be followed. So I've extensively given a report where I've spoken about similar things what you've said: scholarship, transparency, opportunities. But I think we're going to get there in a couple of years, because I was shocked to see that India has hosted the first winter games of Khelo India. That means in the glaciers of Gulmarg, we've had people from Kashmir and people from different parts of that of India, whoever does know how to probably play one of the winter sports, actually come there and ski and actually perform and get some sort of grades and marks and certificates and stuff like that. Who could imagine 10 years ago that India would have a winter
Winter
games?
sports.
So, winter sports, I mean, that's the kind of things that developed countries who have enough capital do. So maybe in 5 years, one of these young girls or guys would probably be up there in the Olympics representing us, because they have been staying in Kashmir and they know how to play the winter sports. Because when you talk about winter sports, it's just like the summer sports. There is like everything you could think of that we have in the summers. Technically, they've done it on the snow. So probably, I mean, we will improve. But as I said, it will take time, because luckily India has talent. That's one thing that very few countries have, and like countries like China have developed talent, but countries like India have natural talent. Like we just have people in villages, we have people in cities. Like when you look at it, Kalpana Chawla from a small place in Haryana goes to US, becomes a citizen, goes abroad, becomes a astronaut, creates history. So similar way, I mean, we have stuff in India as well, Hima Das, Duti Chand. So I think
Yeah.
we'll
For
get
that
there.
matter, in mixed martial arts, Ritu Fogart, she's representing, not
Yeah,
representing India, but she is an Indian.
not yet, but yeah,
She is what? She's an absolute beast. The way she fights, it's insane. Coming from a wrestling background, going into mixed martial arts, and that is a dream for like unlimited number of athletes to go into mixed martial arts. Is the one FC is amazing, and she's been fighting there, and she has an unbeaten streak of 4 right now, competing against Polish nationals, Brazilian nationals, and
okay,
she's
I wasn't
amazing.
aware about all that. But yeah, this is interesting to know, that we are there, and maybe not, if not next year, in couple of years, we'll be there competing with the ones that are the best.
Absolutely, we hope so. And on that note, Chaitanya, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it and really appreciate you coming on to the Paper Planes podcast. I will see you at the student politics panel on 18th of March. I hope that we can manage to have some sort of a live stream for that event in a close circle, maybe 3 or 4 people. But let's see how the tide goes, and let's see how this goes. Thank you so much for being here. Please, do go follow Mark Your Presence. Do subscribe to their newsletter, and do go follow Chaitanya Prabhu and see his work, check his work out. He has done an absolutely amazing job. Thank you, Chaitanya.
Thank you so much, Karan. You've been very kind, and I will be happy to be there. And let's make sure we have some great discussions on that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.